I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sure you could keep going for hours. We did go slightly over on our speeches, so in order to get back on track to get for lunch on time, which is, a very important part of the day, I'm going to call that to a close. We have got a question from Mauritius that's going to come in a moment, but I thought I would just ask each table in turn if you have a comment or a question, and then we'll see if there are linkages or things in common between them. So, Rob, can I start with your table? Do you have a comment or a question?
We split our table into two groups of four.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Rob, would you mind using the catch box? That's the first thing.
Quick shield, throw it at it. Throw it at it. Rob, it's behind you.
And Rob, can you say who you are, just for the...
So do I need to stand up as well? Was that part of the protocol? Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm Rob Eastaway, I'm Director of Maths Inspiration. We do lecture shows for teenagers. And we covered lots of things in our discussion of our half of our table, but talking about the functional side of maths and maths as a servant for other things, and then maths for the sake of maths was two different types. But in terms of whose curriculum it is, one thing that came up from me was whose curriculum it isn't, which is employers. I don't know that employers and the general world out there has any say on this directly, and I think that might be a concern, particularly picking up on Jeff's point about the number of engineers and people doing that, versus mathematical sciences, and the engineers need rather different maths from the mathematicians, but to what extent do the engineers influence the maths content, particularly at A level? I don't know. Were there other things in our half of the table? The other half of the table?
We spent a lot of time...
Darren Macy with Cambridge Maths. Take the teacher voice down a little bit. We actually ended up on a very similar tack on our half of the table as well. So there's harmony and joy breaking out amongst the table. And we talked just a little bit about the needs of different users of the curriculum and how you actually square that circle and come up with something that meets the needs of everybody, and what the pull factors are of the different aspects of the education system of universities and Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2 and so on, but generally the same kind of points.
Thank you. Would you like to throw it to Michael?
We have literacy and specialised skills as a real tension dichotomy in curriculum design. Everybody needs mathematical literacy. Everybody needs choices of going into specialised areas.
Yeah, and I know national numeracy, Derek, you would agree with that, wouldn't you? That we have many students at the moment in the UK, and of course we are thinking about this in an international context, but in the UK we've got many students who pass GCSE with a grade C but actually are not numerate in the sense of being able to function in society competently and confidently. Michael, do you have something to feed back?
Thank you, Lynn. Michael McGarvey from CUP. You want me to stand up? Okay. I'm not sure we've reached consensus. I'm not sure we've reached analysis, but just a few points from our table. We kind of launched into the practitioner versus specialist debate, the barber surgeon versus the professional, and I believe the consensus here, we need to make the curriculum more supportive for the barber surgeon. And in the context of this framework that's been built, there was a debate around how do we create a set of tools that will actually help the classroom practitioner, so that this knowledge of research, this framework is more accessible and translates into usable tools for the classroom practitioner. Further debate around the outworkings point that Tony made in his presentation as well. What will that look like? Can that be a series of textbooks? Can that be a series of other resources? We alluded to the underground maths examples there. But I think the general consensus is how we move towards that delivery for the classroom practitioner.
Could I ask James, can I put you on the spot as the barber surgeon? Was it barber surgeon? Was that the phrase?
That's what I am, yes, apparently.
Yes.
Now, forever.
I just wanted to ask you, here you are, head of a school which has a very large maths contingent, students doing it. Do you feel that the mathematics that you are teaching is the appropriate mathematics?
Oh gosh, okay. We're a sixth form school for very clever kids, and we do maths and A-level maths, and broadly I feel that we're teaching them interesting, exciting things that lead on to more maths, and so that I think works for my particular group of people. I saw that Tony put up vocational education, and it made me wonder what that is or what that means and whether we do anything for those kind of students. But I thought that for the very narrow group of society that I am educating, it's fine. I'm not sure it's fine the way they've got there, but the bit I'm doing at A-level seems pretty
fine.
chirpy. Yeah.
Thank you. Derek. And then I'll bring... Going to take one from this one, and then Mauritius, I'm going to take a question from you.
I think we started off with a bit of Mauritius envy, thinking how nice it would be to be able to get a smallish group of people around a table who, between them, were responsible for writing the curriculum and the textbooks and everything there. But it's not quite the situation we've got. We reached a little bit of consensus when we were talking about what the curriculum kind of wasn't for or shouldn't be for. And I think the biggest conclusion that we came to was that having certain fixed points of knowledge, and the example we came up with and got a little bit fixated on was long division, and and I suppose probably the most helpful conclusion that we came from is that whatever the curriculum is for, it probably shouldn't be that. But we were having a very interesting debate about what we're actually trying to do with maths education. What is it that we actually want students to come out of as an end process, whether they're the more successful high-flying mathematicians or whether they're anybody else? What is it that we want them to actually have gained? What are the skills, aptitudes, knowledge that we want them to have as a result of all those years of mathematical education? What's the end result? And we didn't come to any definite conclusions yet, but it was. I think it's fair to say that it was more about the attitudes and the ability to have whatever we want to call it, critical thinking or an inquiring mind, much more so than particular techniques and chunks of mathematical knowledge. That's where we got to.
So I suppose that one of the things about that is that it's not only what do we want as a result of the curriculum, but whose views are privileged.
Yes.
And
we
what,
talked about
and what can we do about it when we don't agree with those views that are privileged?
Exactly. And long division is, it'd be interesting to have a show of hands of when's the last time anybody did use long division outside of the classroom.
Thank you, Derek. Could you pass it over to Rod's table over there, and then we'll talk. So if you could throw it over to Rod's table. And meanwhile, Mauritius, are we going to get Mauritius back on the camera, please? Hello. Do you have a question or a comment for us?
Yeah. I'm Ajay Ramphal from the Mathematics Education Department, and we have all my colleagues, Dr. Angacha, Dr. Nenduradu, and Asifa, Savila, Ajiv, and Mr. Paudisha, just to introduce them because we could not do it at the start. Yeah, so we wanted just to reflect on the two presentations and to share with you very briefly our fresh curriculum development exercise that we went through right from primary up to secondary, up to grade 9. And we have been facing a number of the challenges that have been mentioned in the presentation in terms of making decisions, what to include in the curriculum, what is the purpose, why we are writing it, and why do we want to bring particular changes. So we had to make decisions in terms of what we want to put. First of all, we had to define the philosophy. Where do we want to go, especially that we are in an exam-oriented system. And the current educational reform is trying to break that, and we want to really make mathematics to be a much more sense-making and really to give a view of mathematics where students can really leave the value and look at the practical side of mathematics, the utilitarian side for vocational purposes and also for further academics. So these have been some of the things that have somehow guided us when we had to make decisions. Just like the second presenter mentioned, so do we go to increase the layers of complexity? Do we reduce up to what level of complexity do you want to do? Do you go for simplicity? So the spiral nature of the mathematics curriculum is something that we take into consideration, as we know, one concept built on the other. So we have one of the things that we have been doing is we have focused a lot of sense making, because it gives us sense making and reasoning. It gives us a type of overall maneuver to be able to handle this issue of whether do you want to put things to in the mathematics curriculum to support the industry, or do you want to put things for the practical side or for examination for academics. So sense making and reasoning has been very much the guiding principle, and we have built everything from there. But now the challenge for us is to mediate these changes that we have brought in the curriculum to the teachers at the classroom level. And this is where we are struggling, and we really need to work a lot to be able to bring it at the level of the classroom.
Can I interrupt you just for a moment? When you say that we are deciding this, one of our colleagues here was saying that people here were quite envious that you can be able to connect all of the different things, the different parts of education. So when you say we, who is we in Mauritius?
Right. Yeah, so when we do the curriculum development exercise, we involve all the stakeholders. So the MI, the institution where we are here, we are responsible for curriculum development at the national level. But for all the decisions that we make, we take teachers on board. So we have consultative meeting with teachers, because Mauritius is a relatively small education system. So it's relatively easy to get access to teachers, to the union, to the decision makers at the ministry level, and we have a centralized education system. So this is what I mean by we. So collectively we decide where we want to go. Although it's not always easy to get consensus, but we try our best to get the best average out of the different views.
Thank you.
So,
I'm going to stop you there only because we have two other tables that we need to hear from. But Ajiv, it's really nice to see what you look like, because we've had lots of Skypes where my camera's been working but theirs hasn't. So they know what I look like, but I never knew what they look like. So it's really nice to see you. Could I ask Rod on your table, or Ellen?
So we also talked a lot about consensus, and one thing that came up for us was that consensus involving lots of people with very disparate viewpoints isn't always a good thing. For example, if there's been too much consultation, you can end up with something that feels a bit incoherent in its efforts to represent too many points of view. So one metaphor that came out of looking at it this way is that different stakeholder groups are like kind of a set of strange attractors, and over time a curriculum will sort of gradually wander around in this space between who is influencing it the most.
That's certainly happened here, hasn't it?
And let's see. On the other hand, though, one thing that can help people trying to pull endlessly is when you explain why a decision has been made. Because if someone can see, well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I know why the group as a whole is doing that, and if the group as a whole has enough of a reason for doing it that they can articulate why, that's probably a good sign for the coherence of what's emerged from the consensus that there is.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Now, we've got 3 tables that we haven't heard from, so what I'm going to do this afternoon when we come to talk about curriculum assessment is go to you 3 tables first, so that we can maybe roll those 2 things in one, because actually curriculum and assessment and whose curriculum I think actually are very, very tightly assigned anyway. So thank you very much for contributing to that.